Hello, my dear friends. It's Artem Kryavka, and I would like to introduce you the next episode of Startup Garage Show. We have some pause between the last one, and today we have a really interesting guest from San Francisco, Katrina Starr. She is a master in business administration, and also she's very well educated in quantum physics, and she also know a lot about psychosomatic, and she created several projects um, that's supporting startup founders with all this journey. And I found this conversation very interesting and meaningful and valuable for all startup founders that's now going through all the challenges in entrepreneurship. So enjoy this episode. Welcome. I really appreciate you, Katrina, for participating in this episode of Startup Garage Show. So, if people forget, my name is Artem Kryavka, and I'm the founder of Liverava company. And Katrina is a great and amazing person from California, right? now, and she's great. She's doing a great job helping startup founders to be more efficient, successful, and mm, psychologically healthy. I think so. So yeah, can you tell me exactly uh, how how did you come to this idea to help startup founders and why it's so important?
Thank you for that question. Uh, so I needed more adventure in my life. I was realizing after traveling and doing all these things, I had a lot of adventure in my personal life. And as I was growing my work and understanding relationships and like healthy work life balance, the pivot for me to move from like executives and helping a lot of lawyers and places of the corporate, I realized there was like a lack of like that entrepreneurship and that adventure of it. I mean, it is a wild ride being a founder. And I've always been very interested in the brilliance of things that come through in the tech world and right now with AI, and there's a lot of resemblance to some of the things that I have worked through in places of the psychology and like just the expansion of humans and my own self that I feel like is a really powerful tool to help what's happening and evolving within the tech world. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, amazing, thank you. And I just let people to bring to understand the story how we met. And when I was in California last time, I'm visiting it. I try to visit it every year as much as I can. And yeah, I'm also a founder. And uh, I should say that this time for me is especially challenging as I'm originally from Ukraine, and now Ukraine experience a very dramatic moments, and I should say that it's the typical life of entrepreneurs are also very crazy, like like um, um, American um, attraction, with all this up and down. But now it also additional challenges like all these events and additional um, threats. So yeah, so I believe it's now it's the most difficult time. So thank you to you, Katrina, because yeah, it was for me a very interesting moment, and I should say that in some way you became a person that helped me to go through a very existential crisis, and it also was like a reborn for me. So I was really excited, and I'm really appreciative for this moment. Um, and yes, I should say that every startup have these moments of, I don't know, epiphany or just growing, you know. So um, and yeah, so startups and business are mostly about relationship and trust and perseverance and resilience and etc. So every startup founder experienced so interesting, unique story of success or sometimes failures, and it's also normal. It's very hard to achieve success without failures. Probably every startup founder have failures in the past. But yeah, let's let's talk about relationship and why it is so important to build strong relationship for yeah in any company. So yeah, what do you think about it? And yeah, thank you one more time.
Hmm. I'm just I thank you for your share here and saying, just speaking what it is. And yeah, it's a wild ride. And I I don't believe that for any of us we can escape the existential crisis. When it happens, it happens. And there can be evolutions of that too in our life. So one of the challenges for us as founders, as humans, is to try to like, oh, okay, we got it all together. We're not going to show those parts, right? But actually that's like where a lot can happen for us, to show us what we're not allowing in our life. And it's a great opportunity to learn, and then that actually can come into our work and to our life in a very powerful way. And yeah, so I thank you for just allowing that. And I actually spoke just recently on Laptop Radio about our relationship with AI, and how, she asked, can, like, is there escaping that thing? When you're in your 20s and 30s, you're like, oh, there's no way I'm not going to be the 40-year-old or I'm not going to go through these things, right? It's like, I think it's part of acceptance of us as humans, and that we do have failures, right? Are great learning opportunities. And so relationships, what is our relationship with failure? What is our relationship with crisis? What is our relationship with each other? And how do we want to show up in these places for each other, with community? And my question is always how. It's like we do it by connecting. And when we genuinely connect with someone or something, like when we have that moment of connection, that's when a lot of things can happen. And that's when we have to have the tools, to navigate some of those situations. So that's, yeah, relationships are, they're amazing to experience, and they challenge us in ways we would most likely never be challenged.
Yeah, I really like your idea about relationships and connection. Yeah, I should say, I'm mostly doing sales for the last time, and it's very hard to make any any sale without this connection. Sale not in the way just about money. I'm not telling about money at all. I'm telling, I'm speaking about this moment of building trust when people are really ready to pay for the value. And for me, money is just a transaction of value. And if this connection is built, then it's really easy to transact anything, so some services or products or money. So when this connection is established, so this is a bridge from between people that can deliver something, yeah, information, data, products, services, etc. So yeah, really good example. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're talking about relationship in startups, it's different relationship between uh, um, investors, employees, partners, customers. Um, what is the difference? How do you think? And why? Yeah, it's we already discussed why it's important, but let's try to understand and to explore these different kind of connections.
It's, I think in these places of different connections, when you were sharing that, I mean, I see all these like different roles that we play, right? Like, okay, I'm going to interact with this investor. I'm going to interact with a customer. I'm going to interact, like whatever the different interactions are, we tend to change our approach and meet them, right, where they're coming from. So a lot of times though, what can happen is that we kind of lose who we are and we don't really like stand in what feels really alive for us because we're trying to morph and change to meet what it is that their expectations are of us. And that's where we end up betraying ourselves potentially, right? Where there's places where we are not staying true to who we really are and what we really desire. So it's when you're dealing with relationships, I think the most powerful thing is to realize it's kind of this balancing act of like, there's an infinite amount of people, right, to make connections with. Yes, we have these small communities and it can feel like we're like kind of dependent on building some of these connections, right? And then if you speak your truth and that connection doesn't end up working, then there's a realization, and this is where we can open up to that there's always more of what we want, of people who are more aligned, who can connect with us. And I think if we're scared to speak what it is that's really like present for us, whether it's an investor, whether it's an opportunity for a new venture, whatever it is, if we're not speaking from where what we need, then that's where we get to play in like what that feels like. And then we also get to play in the courageous, like, I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to share what's going on for me right now. I'm worried about funding. I don't have the proper things in place, right? And just being able to then call in support and ask for additional places of like, I need to get this problem solved. And who are the people that can help me solve that problem? Right? And how can we work together in these places? So it's so important to understand how these relationships are really important, but it's not like a one and only. Like we shouldn't have such a grip on it that we're like actually stifling it and we're stifling ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just remind me some of my best deals probably. And I remember that every time when I was truly myself, so I wasn't hiding. So it's like in relationship between couples, yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as much as you opened, yeah, you're probably the most vulnerable in this moment. But this moment also creates this moment of very deep trust. And when you just yourself, this is the best moment to build this trust. Because yeah, and every time when you just yourself, then it works. And when you try to be somebody or pretend to be, it just don't work. So people somehow really feel it's honest or not. And I can really say that my best deals was made when I was completely honest, completely myself, and it was just a story from my life. Like, okay, this is what I was doing before, this is what I'm doing right now, and it's important because I see this in real life, like some real problems, and they're not illusional, they're real. So people recognize it. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true. And that's how um, every dot's just connected. So, like people, customers, investors, the team. Yeah. And it seems like it's just becoming natural, you know. So, yeah, being yourself is very important. I'm completely agree.
And that can be one of the most challenging things, right? We're always learning more and more about ourselves and like who we are. And each day it's an evolution. It's an evolution of like, oh, I really don't like this, right? And I really enjoy this. And even in my evolution, the last for Momentum Catalyst, what I have cultivated as a space to support founders, I've realized that just by allowing adventure, connection, and curiosity, that has helped me to be more courageous. And I wasn't I knew that there was things I needed to take action with, right? And the courageousness is showing up in my relationships. It's showing up in like just being more and more real and authentic. And I just think that we're always learning. We're always learning. And then those deepest places, like you said, in those deepest places of vulnerability, vulnerability is the word. It's not transparency. It's really vulnerability because you're opening up a space where another person can use that to manipulate or, show up. So there is a place of like trust in that space of when you are being vulnerable. And there's also trust in yourself, right? That even if you show up vulnerably and it doesn't go like the way that you were hoping, that you can trust yourself to navigate that and know that you're okay. Like that's powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I should also say that, yeah, to be vulnerable, it's also uh, a strong and powerful ability. So not everybody are ready to be vulnerable, and that's why probably founders are one of those who do not afraid to be honest and vulnerable. Yeah, it's yeah, this is the moment when we can share some real examples of successful CEO and founders. And just recently, yeah, Elon Musk uh, did so weird things. So there was a conversation about advertisers on Twitter or X platform, and he just made this statement when he just said, "Okay, try." How did he said? yeah, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, it was of course mind blowing, and people like Elon Musk probably can say this way. So not everybody are ready to say that way. So and he said, "Oh, you tried to blackmail me with money." So this is an example when, yeah, people can stay honest. Yeah, but of course, for him, it's a big risk because who knows how advertisers will respond on it. So yeah, this is just a recent example. Probably you can give some other examples.
I to be true to ourselves and to make statements that are bold, right? It can be shocking, right? It can be shocking for whatever situation. And that's kind of what I call a catalyst moment, right? When we're just allowing whatever to come through. So yeah, that's a great example. Like before we started talking, I was thinking about these moments in relationships and connection, right? Where somebody just, it's like there's this pressure or this energy or something, like, and it just builds, and then like something happens. There's a catalyst. There's a moment of definitive, like, this isn't gonna work, like, and that's kind of what this example is like, right? Like, nope, this is not gonna work. I and my my sense, that we can do it in a lot of different ways. There are places where stuff like this happens, when there are catalyst moments. Resentment and shame usually breaks relationships, right? Like it's like those are, and of course, uh, anger in certain ways. If it's explosive anger, that can also break relationships. So I think the thing is we have to be able to have that moment of, yes, there is going to be hurt. When there's relationships with other humans, there is going to be hurt. When there's business relationships, there is going to be impact. There's finding boundaries. There's like, we don't know a boundary for a business or, a thing until we cross that. And then there's these places, right? Of like, we're defining our space as a person interacting with others, and we're defining the space of our startup and being in that place of a business. And so there's lots of different places here to play with and to know that we have this muscle,
Mhm.
that we can break things, right? We do break things, but there's a place here where it could move into a place of a healthier balance of something that wants to show up instead. Or it could be a defining moment of like, yeah, this is done. We're not doing that. Like, it's a no-go from now on.
So can you share some real life examples of successful CEO founders? Yeah, probably from the recent stories.
Well, I would like to emphasize something that really showed up for me, with Sam Altman and Open AI. I was impressed. I saw him a couple times, and there's just something there. In there are places where if we are willing to, he made a really good point about like where we're not seeking like this dopamine hit from validation, right? Like we're not like always going, okay, I need to be validated, or I need to know if this product works, or if I need like these places, and that's a dopamine hit. We're getting a reward, right? Or all those different places. And so it's really important to build that muscle around, okay, I know it's great. I'm going to continue to do this until it's like complete in the way that I'm creating and evolving it. So and then what I would say is with the chaos that happened with ChatGPT and OpenAI and this whole adventure that just happened, it shows the yes, you could argue it's about money. Yes, you could all these different places, right? There's so many different vantage points, but really what the core of it is Sam's ability to navigate that chaos. I mean, that's a very chaotic world. It's on the world stage. Everybody's watching it, right? And that's when it's like a bubble that burst. There was pressure. There was something there that happened that just was like, nope, this is not working anymore. So for us as humans, that can be terrifying to have these bubbles burst, right? And like billions of dollars at stake, like a whole lot of things. But our willingness to allow growth to happen, I mean, it's about being able to navigate some of that chaos and those moments. And I think in my own viewing of things that Sam really showed the power of relationships. It actually shows quantum entanglement. It shows a place of it's not just about the money. We can argue that it is, but it's not. There's a lot of other factors there at play because people are very passionate about AI. There's a lot of passion and like a lot of like things happening for us as a society, and we're trying to figure out what is our relationship with AI and what is that ripple impact that's going to make, in the world. So that's one example.
Do you think he has a really strong relationship with his team?
I think it's very strong. I think that there is a level of respect. I mean, I don't know him personally. I don't know any, like, this is just from my intuition. And like, I think that there's a level of respect and honoring of the brilliance that, that he has cultivated. And I also think that there's leadership there and speaking his truth and allowing what wants to happen, where he's also, I mean, there's guardrails too. Like there's times when he doesn't say a lot. So there's discernment there. And I think that there's a strong bond. I think that there's strong relationships there.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And let's go to the second segment about challenges it's faced by SEO and founders. And I should say that's, if we are talking not only about the business and the relationship between investors and team and customers and partners, employees, there are also relationships between work and life, family, children, wife, I don't know. And it's also a big challenge. For example, if we are talking about Sam Altman, probably it's not very popular story, but I read some weird story about his sister, and it was a really a story that I was impressed because it's like the price that Sam is paying also for his focus on OpenAI, because I see that it's not so easy. So every founder has his personal reason to do something, and yeah, I'm not talking personally about Sam Altman. I'm just show up it as a example, So
Yeah.
I just mean that every founder have their own stories, and all stories are different and unique, but they also challenging in their own way. So but let's try to also to discuss these challenges between uh, life and work balance, and yeah, why it's so important. Because yeah, let's start from myself. I also, when I started my first business as a startup, at first I was working in a family business, and it was also very challenging. I should say that it was the most challenging time for me, because in our family business, almost all the family was involved, like the father, the mother, the brothers, and it was very hard, because you have to separate all your family relationships as a mother and father, and the son, and as a, I don't know, the boss, and the employee, if you can say that way, or shareholders. And so there are so many complicated interactions, and it's so really hard to navigate. Where is the real issue? Is it the personal issue, or it's a family issue, or it's a professional issue? So when I was in the moment when I had to make a choice, I decided that I better quit from family business, because I don't want to mess with with all this competition, and I don't want to compete with my family,
Yeah.
with my brothers, with my father, because I'm a very professional. I think I'm very professional, and my attitude is very professional. So in some cases, I have to decide. Yeah, you know. So and it was one of the reasons why I decided to make my own business, because I just realized I don't want to compete with my family, so I better will compete with others, but not with my family. And it was one of the best choices in my life, because that's how I became a better version of myself, because I had many challenges that I had to go through. But this was also very challenging, because I had to manage all this relationship between my family and business. But it was a beginning of something new. So, but it also another challenges, like my own family, and children's in my life was the the best booster I ever had, because in some way it just made my mind very clear. Because when you have children, you there is like a moment when you realize, okay, this is important and this is not. Because before it, you can think about many things, and okay, how to what decision is the bad, this one or this one, or what I have so many options to do. But somehow when you have somebody that you are responsible for, your decisions became much simpler. This is important, and this is absolutely not important. And that's just an example, and try to, yeah, can you just describe your your stories, your cases? What do you think, what is the biggest challenge for
Well, I
founders?
think, yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I see really, especially within the tech, I mean, just it's like time, right? Like the biggest complaint, well, that there's not time to do this, or like I'm so stretched already, or all these different things, right? The biggest objection is time. And I get that. I understand this place, this valuable resource that we have of time, right? It's a valuable, powerful resource, and we use it wisely. Um, when I started breath work, when I started my real, like, I had some real tools in 2017 of navigating some of the emotional, like the places that were imbalanced. like really, like my home life, like there was stuff. So this is where our home life is not separate from our work, no matter how hard we try, no matter what bound, like it is, we're not set, we can't, it's an a actual like bond, we're bonded. So whatever is going on in our personal life is also going to impact and ripple to our work life. You cannot separate the two. It's like real. And the more that we accept that and understand that, I think there can be this thing. I was thinking about competitive advantage for tech founders. The competitive advantage is, yeah, we've been shown there's all of these, amazing, successful who've made it. And, now, but they like burned the midnight oil. They wore themselves, like they were always just consistently pushing on the gas for the work, right? And there's a lot of personal relationships that maybe fell to the wayside or whatever. But what my point being here is, we are making a fundamental shift, and it's a choice. It's a choice. What is work-life balance, and can that actually be a competitive advantage? Like a competitive advantage in the sense that, yes, I resource myself, I take care of what I really need, not just within the work, because you're not just your work. Like if you put all of your things into your work, that's a place where it can be taken away. Like if you have all of your energy, my daughter gave this great example. She was like, "Mom, like when I get a little like, whoop, okay, I'm putting too much effort, I'm doing too many things, right? Like I'm like trying to do all the things." She's like, "Mom, it's like you're like, it's like this water bottle. Imagine a water bottle outside of yourself. And you're like feeding that, you're trying to make sure that there's enough water in there." She's like, "But you are the big container. Like bring your work in, like it's inside of you. It's a part of all the multifaceted of who you are. And if it's outside of you, then somebody can just take it." So the more embodied, I know that's an interesting word for a lot of people. Maybe it's like, oh, what does embodied mean? The more we're in our body, that's a competitive advantage. There's so many, you go to these massive tech things, right? And AI has that way of like bringing us out of our body. And it's like, oh my God, it's like this adrenaline ride and we're all like so excited and it's all great and we're in our head. Are we embodied? Are we in our body? And then you can tell who in the room is embodied in their body. You can tell. And you can see that, okay, they're coming from more of like a bird's eye view. They're able to see things and notice things that other people are not noticing. That there's a real like, it's almost like an eagle or a hawk, like zooming out and seeing the bigger picture of like what's happening here instead of getting swirled in this swirling like chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I hope that that's real like clear for me, and I see it. And so I think the competitive advantage can be for founders to really work on ways to be more embodied.
Yeah, I really appreciate you for this uh, sharing. And also, I just you just remind me also some interesting moments in my life. Uh, So I mean, these like um, connections between everything, like family, children, parents, business. Yeah, it's all connected. And I also was really surprised when I was more focused on the relationship in the family or maybe friends. Somehow I always had better results. So it's ridiculous when you are very when you're absolutely focused and obsessed with your results in your business. It seems like everything going in the wrong direction. But when you switch back to your family or children and etc., then somehow everything is getting better. It's yeah, probably it's because of some, when you put too much energy, it can break things up. If you spend enough time and energy, then it just works. And sometimes it's another story from investing and all these things. I realize that sometimes you don't need to put more effort. Sometimes you just have to wait, because when something is growing, you if you will put, yeah, maybe if you put more water, it's better. But sometimes too much water is also bad. Sometimes too much sun is also bad. So sometimes too much efforts is also bad. So yeah, um, I really appreciate for this thought. Yeah, it's very very wise. Um, and yeah, probably it's also connected to the stress. When you make too much efforts and you don't have results that you are expecting, then you are really stressed, you're burning out, and they're just not working well, and everything is going bad. You are not satisfied. You can be angry on your partners, employees, or whatever. You blame everything and everybody, and also in the family could be some tension. So yeah, it's just a bad habit, to put
Mhm.
pressure on everything, because it's just stressful. Yeah, and by the way, here in Germany, one of the most popular, uh, people always say, "Oh, das ist sehr stressig." No, so I mean, they always stressed. Not everybody, but I mean, it's so popular to say that way. So yeah, I believe it's making less efforts, sometimes just making less stress, and it's our next segment about cultivating healthy relationships. So how do you think, how can we reduce this stress and burnout? Because it's one of the most difficult challenges in every startup. Because when you are passionate, as you said, yeah, people are really passionate with AI and new, because it seems like when you build something really innovative and new, everybody just running so fast, and of course you will be stressed and burning out. So how can we prevent it? How can we build and cultivate really healthy relationship? What do you think?
Mhm. I think the biggest challenges for founders is the pressure, right? It's the pressure and the stress. I mean, it's really about that. And what's our relationship? So, like, when things are crazy stressful, right? Like, how are we navigating that? Are we then putting blame on others? Like, are we lashing out? Or, like, how is our management of those stressful situations? And that's when the relationships are most vulnerable to breaking, right? So in those pressure points, when we're in those moments of pressure points, it's about accepting it. I think the first thing that you can do, like, in that space, is to not deny it, to say, yeah, this is a stressful moment. But then it's about not letting the fear or the things come in to create even more pressure and stress. So it's actually your management with your inner critic. It's your man, like, all these things will show you when you're in moments of pressure. It's going to show you, and it's an opportunity actually in those moments to break old patterns of behavior. And it actually like it ripples out when you do that. So it's going to ripple out to your team, it's going to ripple out to your family. And when we under that type of pressure, it can make us question a lot of things. It can make us question, are we doing the right thing? Should we be doing this? Like, it can make us question happiness. Like, it can make us question just even living, right? When we're in these really stressful situations. So I think the thing for us as founders is to really be able to like have some gentleness for ourselves and not be so hard on ourselves and like critique ourselves and like then staying up in the middle of the night and going, oh my God, I need to get this done, this, you know, and if I don't do it, then, and you create all these stories. So are you able to step away from the story that you've created from past experiences, because that pressure in the now may not be something that's happened before. This may be a new place of something that really wants to come through. So a lot of it is about discernment around what's actually happening and acceptance of it. And knowing that, you know, if it touches on some past stuff, it's being able to like really zoom out again and go, oh, what is this really? What's the big picture here? And so this place is a skill. It's a skill. And those are muscles that get to be developed. And everybody has the capacity to have these types of muscles.
Yeah, you know, without the pressure, there is impossible to create diamonds. You know,
Sure.
that diamonds are mostly created because of the pressure. And it seems like all these founders, the successful founders, they like diamonds because of the pressure from everywhere, from the from the investors and partners and customers and employees, because you know everybody wants something, and it seems like because of this pressure, founders and CEOs are they have to to develop all these muscles and to become these diamonds, or you will be completely crushed, or you will become a diamond. So probably because of it, founders are, are those people that can handle this, and it's how beautiful companies are created. Yeah, so that's why, you know, entrepreneurs, for me, one of the most important um, people that's moving economy forward, and that's why every country, you know, um, nowadays are hunting these talents, because they are really very rare. And yeah, to be a really good founder, it's a big responsibility, it's a big art, and yeah, a very high pressure environment. So
Well, and you know what just came through when you were saying that is, you know, Einstein, the place of what we're so underutilized is our imagination.
yeah,
And when we're in these types of pressure points, being able to use our imagination can be actually an access and a doorway to really like diffuse some of that pressure. And inviting in, this is where curiosity, I love curiosity and being really curious about what are the problems, what's another way to solve this, how do we resolve this, right? And being able to use our imagination, I think, is one of the most powerful places for us as founders to cultivate and actually turn those pressure points into like real, like it's tangible. So I mean, I just went through one. It was like, all right, like, and it was showed me the connection between the personal and professional. There is no disconnection. Whatever is happening in my work life is happening and impacting my personal life. And so it's such a defining moment. And I got to break a pattern. And the pattern was this old belief of when I was really young that I was unlovable. I created a belief. And like somehow that was impacting a current situation for me to really like help one of my clients break a pattern around behaviors that were ultimately impacting the ability to have open and honest communication. And it's the avoidance, right, that kicks in. So we like to avoid conflict. We like to avoid these pressure points. We like to, we'll do lots, we'll negotiate, we'll make deals. We'll be like, I don't want to go through that pressure point. I will do anything to not do that.
Yeah, you know, sales is the most challenging part of any business, and I know people that hate this job because it's so stressful when you have to negotiate about something, and people are, you know, always trying um, to discuss every point, you know, and sometimes it's really hard to convince. And yeah, sales are not very uncomfortable process sometimes. Yeah, of
It is.
course, when you do some great marketing job, then sales become easier because you know it's very hard to convince those people who are not ready to buy. That's why good marketing help to prevent this uncomfortable or to reduce this amount of uncomfortable situations, because then your potential customers more um, like prepared. So because you already found those who really need your product or service, so you don't have to convince them a lot. You just have to build these connections and trust and etc. But yeah, I just trying to connect this cultivating of healthy relationships and muscles. It's you need to have this to build relationship. So how do you think, what is these tools that helps to create these muscles? So yeah, for sure, it's you know, if in the past we mostly was talking about IQ, so it's like in intellect, but now we are mostly talking about EQ, like emotional intellect, and probably because of AI, that could be much more intelligent in closest future. The things that stay with human is the emotional intelligence. But who knows? Probably artificial intelligence will be also good in it later. But for now, it's more about human, and our emotions became a really important tool. But what do you think? What helping people to build these muscles, especially for founders? What is
Yeah.
this?
So the muscles, so yes, there's the IQ, the EQ, there's even the SQ, right? Or like the spirit
Oh,
intelligence, right?
the
So
next level.
Right. There's all these different places, right? And I think the place that's really powerful is when we realize that we're not separate from anything. We are like really there is like we're all connected in different ways. So I think one of the most impactful things for me that's is using breath work, like understanding my breath. Like and it's crazy, I never thought that I had an issue with my breath. I didn't know that until like the emotions were way heavy. I was dealing with a traumatic place of my childhood trauma, and then I was also navigating the death of my father. And I had a young son, like he was not even a year old, and I had a young daughter. And so it was like a massive pressure point for me. And what came in and shifted so much for me was understanding breath work, how to use the breath to breathe through. There's so many different ways, right, to allow the breath and to understand those techniques. That builds, when we have a connection with our breath, we can then connect with everything. When we're coming from this place of like, and we're breathing into our belly and we're like like our diaphragm, a lot of times we won't expand our bellies, and that like keeps us disembodied. So the more that we expand and use our breath, it's really powerful. Other place, and then that helps us to connect to other things, right? Where there's this inner critic, and this inner critic, our relationship with our inner critic, that's where we're the most hard on ourselves. It's the voice that says you can't do it, you're not worthy, you're ugly, nobody will like you. Like it's this voice that's consistently running. And we all have it. And allowing ourselves to like almost have compassion for that voice. It's about having compassion and discernment with that voice and knowing that it's not true. Yeah, there are places where it can help us to improve, and there is a powerful thing about the inner critic. It can help us to see where we have shame, like a lot of shame, like, towards ourselves. And I think that this is our work here as humans. AI is great. Like the AI doesn't have traumas. It doesn't have these stored experiences. It doesn't have an inner critic. Like it does like, and so that's actually like, what if we use that as our competitive advantage and our evolution as humans?
Sorry, just a moment of a little joke. I just imagine the situation when you are in some event with investors and you come to some of them and say, "Oh, let's breathe together. Will you invest $1 billion into my startup?" Oh, sorry, but my inner critic says it's probably not gonna happen. Yeah. So yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing. I just surprised. It's it's really an interesting story. When you started to talk about breathing techniques, and that's what I did for the last years. I was learning how to breathe a lot with my meditations, and I should say I was so impressed how powerful is it. It's you just can calm yourself down very easily. You can reduce stress like in a few minutes with a specific breathing. Yeah, it's amazing how simply we can improve our quality of life just with the breathing. So it's yeah, it was sound like a joke, but it's really very powerful. So yeah, I'm not surprised. So thank you for sharing this wisdom. It's yeah, that's what's came into us from very ancient times from India probably. because they are really good in it, and Buddhism also, they use all these techniques. So yeah, that's a very old wisdom that we probably don't use uh, efficiently yet. I mean, in general, people, we are still like, it seems like humanity became more conscious, but this process is still very slow. That's so many people still don't know even how to use the simple techniques. But I hope maybe with this video, some people will try it out and will improve their life quality.
I'd like to share just something really quick here. You know how we have these moments in our life where there's a car accident, there's a breakup, there's like, and I call them catalyst moments. And there's actually ways to access these shifts for ourselves with our breath. And the places over the last 8 years where I've helped my clients with the breath, um, the place, it's actually the breath that I help support them, is the breath that we actually breathe when we're dying. It's the way that our body like just knows how to let go of things and how so that's what's so powerful about the breath, is it's an intelligence within our body, and it's there to support us in ways that we can't even imagine. And when the breath breathes you, it's like one of the most extraordinary feelings because you're not thinking about it. Like if you're in a stressful situation, the breath is breathing you, and you're like, whoa, like this is like my breath is just kicking in and it's helping me to resolve this really stress because it knows now that that's what is needed. So I really wanted to just share that because I think a lot of times we get stuck in these pressure points or like stuck in the same looping patterns and we don't know how to resolve it. But there are ways to resolve the things that we're struggling with.
Yeah, so interesting. So let's try to wrap all these beautiful ideas. And how do you think, what is the best strategy for overcoming relationship challenges? um, I mean, it's of course we can use our intelligence in general. I mean, in intellect and emotional and our spirit, of course. Yeah. Um, so how do you think, what is the best strategy for founders? Yeah, to build all these relationships that's so
Mhm.
essential for every startups.
Well, I'd say the biggest thing right now that's just coming through is being able to practice genuine giving and receiving with each other, right? So I think that's something that you can employ every day. You can figure out places of like, wow, I really feel like giving a a compliment to someone, or like I'm genuinely inspired to give, $500, just that, I just want to give to someone, like with no attachments, no expectations. Like when we're genuinely giving to someone without expecting them to do anything for us, it can cultivate really interesting places for us in our relationships. And this is like not an easy practice because usually we give in order to receive something, right? Or there's a motivation behind it. So this is a muscle and it works. It helps us to see where maybe we're not giving to ourselves, where we're limiting ourselves, where we're like it's a real powerful place. So yes, we can have our own intelligence, A lot of times, if there's stuff that's coming up within relationships, like if it's co-founders, if there's places of stuff in personal life, it's always great to have a neutral third party to be a part of that and to help go into the places that are really uncomfortable. So that's also a really powerful, and it's good to lean into support in those ways. It's also really important to just understand human relationships and how to cultivate those strong bonds and to have discernment. Our ability to have discernment around relationships is also very important.
Yeah, very good idea about giving. And I just remember the moment in my life when I was giving so much. I was enjoying this process, but in some moment I realized I'm just exhausted. So how do you think, how can we prevent this, and why it is so happen, why it is happening, and is it possible to go all this journey by yourself, or we really need somebody to go with? So yeah, probably too much questions, but yeah, what do you think?
Oh, I love this. Like this is where it gets really yummy right here. So we have relationships in order for us to experience ourselves more. Like, so I get to cultivate a relationship or a connection. So relationship is, we're talking like you can have a relationship with a butterfly. It's just flying by you and you're interacting with it. You're going, wow, that's amazing, right? Relationship is about you are experiencing more of yourself by being in connection with other people. And wow, how powerful that can be for us, right? To be able to experience more of ourselves. Like we can go to our edges of like anger, of overgiving and getting to burnout, right? It's like, wow, I have this tendency to give, 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 and I'm getting burned out and tired. Wow, what is that about? You know, and so then it's like, oh, there's usually for us as humans, there's, if we're not receiving and we're not allowing things to come back to us, it's probably because we have an expectation in our giving. There could be some people pleasing. It could not actually be a genuine place of what we're cultivating. And so then it's an invitation to go, oh, wait a minute, what do I want to experience? I don't want to experience burnout. I want to experience receiving. I want to experience, and a lot of times what happens for us, this is just part of like trauma, is we actually, it's a trauma response to not receive. And that's like a lot of the work that I do is to help like unravel. And it's not about going into the past. It's actually just about what's happening right now. What is right now that's in front of you that you're not able to receive, or what is it that's impacting you? So much of us as humans, it's just about energy. We're like giving and receiving all the time. And there's places of connection in that giving and receiving, and then we're like experiencing more of ourselves because we have these connections. And yes, I desire that for my life. I want to have more of those connections where I'm like, oh, I'm experiencing more of like, wow, I had some anger come out. Wow, I'm feeling shame in this area. Oh, I'm feeling joy here. Wow, this feels like exhilarating and exciting. And like, like more of who I am is showing up because I'm allowing myself to experience myself. And so much of us as a society, we go numb. We are numb because we're trying to work harder. That's the one thing. We're trying to work harder and we're like, so we either are working and forcing, or we're like becoming hard like a rock, right? So we're either like pushing and forcing and like, right, like pushing out, or we're like becoming like closed and hard. So those are ways that we become numb, and then we're not experiencing ourselves at all, except we're experiencing numbness. So this is, yeah, I signed up to experience more of myself here on this beautiful thing we call the planet. And our EQ, our emotional intelligence, is this place of like being able to realize, yes, we get to play in that. We get to learn and understand and cultivate those areas for us for a more fulfilling life.
Very, very interesting. So does it mean it's when you okay, let's take to extreme situation. The one situation is when you just giving too much, so you're absolutely altruistic, and then you just feel exhausted. And another story, another case when you like not giving at all and just receiving, 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 and you just became like absolute egoist. And this is another extreme. So your idea is that we have to be more balanced in it. So what does it mean? Yeah.
To be balanced in it.
Yeah.
Um, well, I help a lot of founders. I call it the power circuit, right? And it's the infinite loop. We're always moving through this. We're always like, we can't escape it as humans. And I'm like, you know, some people are like, really? Like, I wanted to be able to escape this thing, right? Like, but no, you're a human. You're always, and finding that balance, um, is, it comes from within in you. It comes from within you.
So if I get your idea, so it seems like if you feel exhausted, that means that you probably was cultivating some I don't know actions and behaviors. It's not healthy,
Yep.
and it just exhausting you. And the vice versa, if you just create an environment when you're just consuming all and everything and everybody, then it also another uh, unhealthy cultivation of behavior. So the idea is to create habits and cultures that will be balanced in this energy flow, right? Can
Yeah,
we
I
say?
almost, yeah, like it's almost like when you were giving the two examples, it's almost like it's outside of the laws of nature, right? Like that's, to me, that's what it feels like. It's very much outside of the law. We're not always just like
Like
it's.
it's like a black hole and like a
Mhm.
supernova. So
Yeah.
black hole consuming everything and supernova just burning out all the energy out and then it just collapsed. So
Yes.
I, I found it very, very astronomical.
Right? Yeah, I love the examples of that. And the place, so then okay, so like if we're getting burned out and we're continually giving to something, right? Or we're doing something, or maybe we're giving to our work, maybe whatever it is, and we're starting to feel fatigue and burnout. And burnout can happen in one day. If we're continually doing something and then all of a sudden we wake up and we're just like, we're done. Like we've had warning signs to get to that point. There has been places of warning. And so I think the most interesting thing when um what is the underlying pattern that's continually, like, this is where we find the balance. When we start to identify some of the patterns, we're making a decision to do the same thing over again because we feel guilty. Or what's the pattern is, oh, I want to avoid conflict. I don't want to feel someone's anger. So I'm going to avoid, I'm going to go back into this place. This is where we get to look at what are the patterns that we've created. And a lot of those patterns are old things from childhood, and they're no longer serving us. So yes, when we are depleted or when we're in like just like ecstatic, we're spending, we're doing all these things, life is amazing, it's like all these things, right? Like then it's like, okay, what's the patterns though? Where are we not in balance?
Yeah,
Where are we like, um and usually it's in the body where there's things in the body that we're avoiding anger, we're avoiding conflict. So there's this is where we get to get curious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just remember my experience working with different people, and like coaches or psychotherapists, and yeah, it was an interesting connection of some experienced emotion and feelings inside body, and sometimes it's so interconnected. I was really surprised to knowing about it. um, and yes, but I'm also remember this experience because I still have this question: should we go by ourselves alone this journey, or we should go together with somebody? Is
Hmm.
it essential to have some guide or mentor or coach or whatever? Yeah, for me, sometimes this founder job is very lonely because it seems like you experience challenges. It's just really difficult to find somebody that has the same issues, and that's why it's so lonely journey, because nobody can just tell you, okay, you should do this way and everything will be fine. Nobody can tell you this way. But it's much uh, joyful to go this journey, at least with your team. But also it's really good to have somebody wise that can at least give you some advice. Of course, there are another trick. Very often when you have some advice, then you just do not take responsibility, because oh, it's you gave me this advice and I did this way, and it was, uh, for example, unsuccessful. Oh, that's that's not me, that's an advice. So what do you think? Is it better to go alone or together with somebody?
So so just for the awareness, there's no way that I would be where I am today in my work life balance and my fortitude and my courageousness without a lot of different people being a part of my journey. And the place that I've been very aware of is it's really important to find alignment with a person if you're looking for support. If And it's actually one of the reasons why I've cultivated some of the places of support, whether it's a mastermind or it's a place, because we are experiencing these lonely places. And that's actually when we need to lean in, is when we feel alone and we're the only ones solving this type of a problem. And I see that so much. Me too. I went through that. And so I've had so many different places of support, whether it's a group, whether it's individual. And the one thing though, it's not about them telling me what the answer is. The most powerful place is like me gaining the muscles and the strength and the capacity to like come to those decisions by myself with, of course, some support and nudging and like encouragement, right? And knowing and having discernment over what choices I can make. So a lot of this, it can get a little tricky when we place that place on somebody else of like, oh, well, you advised me to do this or that, right? And so that's an area where I really, there's a place when we're breaking patterns when I will show up with my clients and be like, okay, you get to make a choice here. Do you want to break this pattern that's impacting and you've been and we've been working on this, or are you going to decide to not? And then like that's just the choice, right? And they know the consequences. They understand the terrain that they're dealing with. So I think the biggest thing, my biggest place of I think we need community. We have to have community. We can't just have our work people, our team. We need other founders who are similar in the spaces of where we're like what we're committed to, what is our vision, and how are we showing up in the world. We need those places for our own sanity, like really, and to know that we're not the only one going through the same problems.
Yeah, for me personally, I prefer uh, to go together with other people because it's more joyful. It's like like in the family, um, it's not an easy, but it's much more funnier than to be alone. So I believe that it's very easy to be yoga somewhere high in the mountains where nobody else, and it's much harder to stay calm in the environment where so many people around and it's pissing you off. So yeah, it's remind me it's easy to stay calm when outside just in nature and birds sound and some water flowing. So yeah, um, me personally, I prefer to not be alone and to be surrounded with good people. It's much warmer inside.
Mhm.
So let's try to wrap all this uh, what we have talked about and um, yeah, it seems it's founders' journeys always challenging. So I just want to thank you for all this conversation. I hope that people will find themselves in it, and I really want to thank everybody that will listen this discussion till the very end. Um, I hope you found a lot of interesting thoughts, and probably because of it, wise people always said in this weird way. They don't tell you exactly what to do, but um, they um, they ask questions, so you can answer on these questions by yourself. So yeah, it's a very uh, wise way to say something. Or maybe the story, then stories. It's also describe some situations, and even if we will take all these holy books from different religions. They also written in the way they just describe some stories, so that you can learn from these stories. And it's very hard to write a story where just one person acting. There are always some mess, and then you can learn something from the stories. So yeah, Katrina, I just want to thank you. And what 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 are your final thoughts about everything that we have discussed?
Hmm. I
What can
let
you wish?
Yeah, like let's not have fear around relationships, right? And let's get messy. Let's allow connection. Let's be in these places, because that's ultimately going to help us with these pressure points that we experience. Um, our capacity to grow in connection with others and like stand in our no and say our no, right? Genuinely and wholeheartedly is a muscle. It's a muscle. And being able to accept rejection and abandonment and all these places that bring up things for us is it helps us in those pressure points in our life. And like the only person that's going to take care of you is yourself. Ultimately, the person that is the most advocating for you is you. You're your biggest advocate. And acceptance of that, right? Acceptance that you can celebrate this life and experience this life. It's a choice, and it's a choice how you want to show up. And you get to show up in a place of where you genuinely care for yourself and you're showing that to other people, right? That's going to ripple out to a lot of people. And that rippling out is going to impact, it just impacts people. I had a founder message me the other day and he's like, I'm like finally doing, I'm really implementing work-life balance and I really appreciate, like, I learned it from you. And I was like, I I haven't worked with him, right? I'm like, oh, how? And he's like, oh, your posts and what you've shared and like, the interactions that I've seen just in the community when I've attended events with him. And I was amazed as to what that ripple was, right? We don't know our impact. We can only like take care and cultivate ourselves and offer these places of connection, but I really don't think we'll ever know our impact. And that's really none of our business. It really isn't.
The best feelings that I have when I during my work, when people sincerely just saying thank you for your time. So I hope that people will find this conversation useful, and who knows, maybe somebody will write something. But I'm not expecting it. As you said, we never know our impact. But I find this conversation very deep and meaningful, and I want sincerely to thank you for what we have done just recently.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much. Thank you.
Katrina Starr, and you can find all the links below this video and just write your
Thank
thoughts. Thank you.